Good day everyone, this is the Group 2 presentation of Gloria Cluster in our subject Assessment and Learning, and I am hoping that you have a prior knowledge about the upcoming topics.
And hello everyone, I am your first reporter. My name is Jenaline M. Inay.
Number 1 is standard-based assessment. Number 2, types of standards. Number 3, assessment type selection. Number 4, assessment flow. Number 5, types of educational assessment. And the last is unpacking learning competencies. For our learning outcomes, in our first topic that we will discuss, I hope that you can read it on your screen as of this time. So, standards-based assessment must be rooted in the learning outcomes that have to be given to learners. Learning outcomes are commonly derived from the policies made by the educational learners down to the learning institutions. Let us start with the question, what is standards-based assessment? So it is meant to offer a way that teachers can identify the skills that matters most, can evaluate student work fairly, and the teacher must be equipped with basic and advanced knowledge regarding the clustering of competencies. There are also a supplement for the setting up of the standards-based assessment, and those are the following. The first one is the clarity of learning targets. Clear learning targets based on standard learning targets enable the teacher to see the student's future accomplishments. And the concrete goals written in student-friendly language that clearly describe what students will learn and be able to do by the end of the class, unit, project, or even a course. Second one is constructive alignment. This is a design for teaching in which what it is intended students should learn and how they should express their learning is clearly stated before teaching takes place. In assessment and learning, whether task output is process-based or product-oriented based, constructive alignment is the most important thing to consider by the teacher in executing the whole teaching and learning process. There are also principles in constructive alignment that we need to know. So teachers make alignment between the planned learning activities and the learning outcomes and to measure the attainment of those outcomes. Constructive alignment is vital because it ensures intended learning outcomes for a lesson guaranteed to be effective, transparent, and purposeful. So that's all for the first topic, and the second one are the types of standards for our learning outcomes. Differentiate between content standards and performance standards. Explore national and international educational standards and analyze how standards contribute to curriculum development. So let us proceed to the different definition of a content standard versus performance standard. As you can see on your screen, you can read it. The first one in content standard is describes the specific content that should be taught and learned. So the performance standard is defines level of work that demonstrates achievement of standards. And our educational system is hooked up with the process of following the standards for selecting the content. As to the criteria and the selection of the content, Alvear 2015 suggested the following. Number 1 is interest. Number 2 is self-sufficiency. Number 3, significance. Number 4 is validity. Number 5, utility. Number 6, learnability. And the last is feasibility. Since the standards are written to support and promote specific desirable learners' behaviors in a particular task, in teaching and learning, the basis for standards is the attainment of minimum competencies required by the course learning outcomes. So the characteristics of good performance standards is you can see it on your screen. For the summary of the topic that we tackled, content standards adds to the teaching technique that students should know and do. Performance standards give a teacher a hint of how will the students have to do their job. So let us proceed to the next topic that will be discussed by Ma'am Julife Hulao.
Good day, my name is Julife Hulao from Gloria Cluster, and my topic for today is about assessment type selection. Assessment is a vital certifying the learning competencies achieved during the teaching and learning process. Teachers should have a strong sense of choice and conviction in selecting the most appropriate assessment tool for accomplishing learning tasks and determining the teaching effectiveness. Assessment is important in verifying learning achievements. Teachers should choose the appropriate assessment tool based on the learning outcomes. Here are some of the principles in selecting appropriate assessment tool by Hicks 2018. Number 1 is the principle of constructive alignment. By starting with what we want our student to learn and do, we can create and choose assessment to showcase the appropriate knowledge and skills we are aiming for them to learn. The principle of constructive alignment is a principle in selecting the appropriate assessment tool. Number 2 is varying assessments. Students learn in different modes and at a different pace in which their strengths and challenges for assessment differ as well. Number 3 is assessment intervals. Since students tend to go over an assessment which they have to take, summative assessment, there must be a series of assessments given to track the progress of their learning. The principle of assessment intervals recognizes the importance of tracking student progress and adjusting teaching strategies to ensure that they are meeting the intended learning outcomes. Choose between direct and indirect assessment. Assessment is said to be straightforward if the teacher measures actual student behavior. Direct assessment tend to be more objective and straightforward as they measure actual student behavior, while indirect assessment are more useful in gathering opinions and feedback. Number 5 is information collection on student. Performance is a crucial process that enables teachers to closely monitor their student progress and make informed decisions to improve their learning outcomes. My next topic is about assessment flow. As an educator, the choice of suitable instruction and assessment technique to reach out to student learning is a significant ingredient to guaranteed student success. Ibig sabihin lang nito na ang assessment ay never-ending process of progress. Assessment flow consists first is clearly state the plan and student learning outcomes. The plan is to use project-based assessment and peer evaluation to assess student learning in a social studies unit on an Asian civilization. Next is organize results of the instruction and assess the student learning outcomes. After, followed by analyze results of the assessment of student learning outcomes. Analyzing the result of the assessment of student learning outcomes involves looking at the data collected during the evaluation stage of the assessment flow and comparing it to the expected student learning outcomes. And lastly is remedy the strategies employed in attaining the learning outcomes. Dumako naman tayo sa first step, students' learning outcomes. Number 1 is write the plan and student learning outcomes developing. Developing critical learnings outcome for students that reflect what student will do in the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domain should be achieved by teaching. Ibig sabihin na mga estudyante natin ay may mga matututunan sa ating itinuturo before preparing of learning ng outcomes. Number 2 is establish results of the instruction and assess the student learning outcomes. There are numerous ways of choosing and using assessment tools to determine the learning outcomes of student. Number 3 is analyze products of the assessment of learning product outcomes. Evaluation and reporting of the assessment results are essential on time. Step 4. Remedy the strategies employed in reading the learning outcomes. Dissemination is necessary when the results of the assessment are on hand. The evaluation findings would be worthless unless use a method to develop the teaching learning process further. Remedying the strategies employed in reaching the learning outcome involves disseminating the results of the assessment and using them to improve the teaching learning process. That's all my presentation. Thank you for watching.
Types of educational assessment. Types of educational assessment. Assessment in education is broad and serves various purposes. Types of assessment can be categorized based on their functions. The assessment framework in learning involves multiple tasks to achieve intended learning outcomes. In education, assessment plays a crucial role in evaluating students' learning progress and achievement. The assessment for learning. This activity involves determining teaching and learning feedback. Assessment information is used to plan instruction, select student activities, and diagnose learning strength and difficulties. Written or oral feedback from learners is used to improve teaching and learning. Formative assessment is used during the initial stage of teaching. Formative assessment, which is conducted during the initial stage of teaching, falls under this category. Assessment as learning. This activity entails self-assessment by learners. Teachers observe student progress through question, reflection, and task. The student engage in self-monitoring and receive feedback from teachers or peers. Collaborative assessment among peers is also present, where students assess their work based on predetermined standard. Assessment as learning involves self-assessment by learners. Students actively monitor their own progress and engage in reflection and self-evaluation. Assessment of learning. This type of assessment provides information about learning achievement. It certifies the extent to which students have demonstrated accomplishment. Students' performance is graded and certified as passing or failing. Ability to perform tasks is classified based on the degree of performance. Basen's perspective on assessment. According to Basen's 2018, assessment involves the proper collections, interpretation, and use of information related to learning. Assessment enhances teachers' awareness of student knowledge, understandings, skills, and personal characteristics. It should be valid, proper, manageable, and supportive of learning. Assessment should support teachers' judgment and promote accountability. 8 assessment types according to function Basen's 2018. Number 1, summative assessment. Number 2, formative assessment. Number 3, evaluate assessment. Number 4, diagnostic assessment. Number 5, performance-based assessment. Selective response assessment. Number 7, authentic assessment. Number 8, written or oral assessment. Summative assessment is conducted at the end of instructions to certify the degree of learning outcomes achieved. Formative assessment is used during instruction to identify learning difficulties and monitor progress. Formative assessments, on the other hand, is used during the instruction process to identify learning difficulties and monitor student progress. A diagnostic assessment identifies the causes of learning difficulties and can be conducted before or during instructions. Diagnostic assessment help teachers tailor their instruction to address individual needs and provide targeted support. Selective response assessment requires learners to select the correct response to questions. Selective response assessment is a type of assessment where learners are required to choose or select the correct response from a set of options. This authentic assessment assesses authentic tasks and activities both inside and outside the classroom. Authentic assessment focuses on assessing students' ability to apply their knowledge and skills to real-life tasks or activities. Written assessments evaluate the quality of knowledge acquired by learners on a particular topic. Written assessment specifically evaluate the quality of knowledge acquired by learners on particular topic. This assessment typically involve written responses, essay or short answer question.
Unpacking learning competences. What is unpacking? Is the process of deconstructing student learning outcomes into component parts, competences to identify key lifelong transferable learning skill and the types of learning, experience, activity, tasks, and assessment that align with those outcomes. 4 parts of an ABCD context. Audience: identifying the specific group of people for whom the learning or communication is intended, understanding their characteristics, needs, and prior knowledge. Behavior: defining the desired action or change in behavior that the learning or communication aims to achieve. The audience: this part involves identifying the specific group of people whom and learning or communication intended. It's important to understand the characteristic, needs, and prior knowledge of the audience in order to tailor the condition, considering the specific circumstances or context in which the desired behavior. The condition: consider the specific circumstance and context in which the behavior should occur. The degree sets level of proficiency or mastery expected by considering this aspect.
And that's all our presentation. And again, this is Jenaline M. Inay, and my members are Sofia V. Santos, Ma'am Julie V. M. Hulao, and Meljan M. Zelda.